Our speaker today is Peter Mui. I've known Peter for many years. I met him at the occasion of his sister marrying my son. So he is my daughter-in-law's brother. That and the fact that he graduated from MIT in '82 tells you all about his background. But I've asked him to say a little bit more about his career because it's an unusual one. And I think you would be interested, but I'll leave that up to him. He started the Fixit Clinics some years ago, and it has grown rather unexpectedly, I think, and I think you'll be interested. So I'll just turn the meeting over to Peter. Peter.
So guys, I'll just go into my presentation. The stuff about me, I really have no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Other than my work. So let me just speak into this thing. I'll start sharing and get right into it. So Fixit Clinic is this hobby of mine that has gotten way out of control. 11 years ago, I put out a bunch of simple tools at UC Berkeley's Albany Community Center to see if we could take apart things for people. And now it's become this, at this point, a global organization. Sometimes I think I just did it just so I could get myself some good friends, honestly. So we've had this wonderful long run with technology. Back in the 1960s, the only person with a microwave in their house was the chairman of Raytheon in Waltham, and he used to use it to impress his dinner guests with how fast he could cook food for dinner. And now we have talking microwaves. You can tell it, make popcorn, and it'll make popcorn. So this has been kind of an amazing run we've had with technology. But what do you do when this stuff, first thing is, we love our tech. We love our, space heaters that rotate and our toothbrushes that rotate. There are Bluetooth toothbrushes now. And this stuff has really sort of added a lot to people's lives. But what do you do when it breaks? And for a lot of people, they don't know what to do. And I'm going to touch on the thing on the right-hand side a little bit too. So when something does get to end of life, how do you devolve it into its constituent parts in a way that's meaningful, that you can actually return these things back to their elemental forms to reuse them again? We've built these things up into these highly sophisticated devices that are combinations of all sorts of disparate materials. And then we sort of want to devolve them again, and that's going to become a struggle going forward. Or what if they don't make the thing anymore, like the Hamilton Beach Mixmaster on the left? And for the little girl on the right, the toy industry has kind of become like the fashion industry. If they stop making a toy, if a kid has a favorite toy and they stop making it, there's no choice but to try and fix it. I mean, for her, I just don't think that Spider-Man walkie-talkies are going to cut it to replace her princess walkie-talkies. So that's why we run these events. So this is not about repairing things for people. This is not about offering free repair. This is about applying critical thinking and troubleshooting skills to everyday items in the hopes that you can sort of figure out, to deploy these types of skills out in the community more broadly. And even when we don't have these in-person events, like we haven't had for the last year, we've deployed the ability, we've deployed the tools. So on the left, we have a modest toolkit, enough to fix a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop that we deployed through some public libraries. And then we have a broader set of community tools that we're deploying in public libraries as well. Okay, how low can you go? What age group is too young to do this? Well, this is a 7th grader who knows how to fix smartphones. And here is a 6th grade class where we taught them how to maintain and service their own 3D printers in the class. And now that we're all doing distance learning, I totally believe they can repair their own distance learning tech. Beyond fixing people's personal items, I mentioned fixing the distance learning tech on the previous slide, there's also repairing our shared public property, our community assets. These are library book carts that were out on the loading dock, destined for salvage. And these things cost hundreds of dollars each. They're built like tanks. The only thing wrong with them was they had one bad caster on one bad wheel. So it's questions of, can you get the spare parts? You know, in this particular case, we sacrificed one cart and took its good wheels to fix the other carts. But the question is, over time, how do we change institutional procurement processes so that they look for durability and maintainability and serviceability as part of what they purchase, and look for spare parts availability? Yes.
Have you found that people are not, companies are now designing a product in such a way that makes it increasingly difficult to do that repair? Because that's what I've noticed as a consumer.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay. You know, screws that I don't have a screwdriver to open.
We'll get to that. Okay, so the pandemic starts, and all of a sudden we're scrambling. Okay, and we realize that, you know, there's certain things that we can't, we're in trouble for any number of reasons. The global supply chain is breaking down. We've got this national stockpile of ventilators, and we don't know if there's anybody, we don't know if there's parts available. We don't know if they work or not. We don't know what's going on with them. So, you know, what are you going to do with that sort of situation? And so Fixit Clinic launched rapid response repair. So we basically said, look, it's an honor and a duty to serve if you can. If anything that breaks, that in the civilization, you know, that requires repair and there's no ability to repair it, if all the med techs are out sick, we'll basically you know, rise to the occasions. And so we were looking for the bat signal to come out. And luckily the med techs did not get sick. But what we did find as a niche in the pandemic was a lot of people started sewing coronavirus masks at home. And so they dug out their old sewing machine out of the closet and it wasn't working, or it needed adjustment. So we did a lot of sewing machine repair on the virtual Fixit Clinics, and we continue to do a lot of sewing machine repair on the virtual Fixit Clinics. All right, so these virtual Fixit Clinics, what are they? Well, they're just wonderful. So because the whole world moved to Zoom, we had first mover advantage, you know, to use a marketing term. And we basically started holding the same events that we held in person via Zoom. Now, obviously, they're not the same events because we can't handle the items that the people want to present us with. But it was wonderful anyway. And we actually were able to prove the hypothesis that we could indeed repair things remotely. So lots of times that people need some diagnostic tool or something, and we tried to figure out how to get that to them locally. But many times we were able to do these literal hands-off, roll up, nothing up our sleeves repairs for people. It's been a wonderful experience, and we're going to continue to do this going forward. And it's gone global too. So that was the other wonderful thing, is now you've got people participating from all over the world. All right, you know, Scotland, France, the UK, and in the lower right, poor Sandeep from Australia got up at 4:30 in the morning to participate in the Fixit Clinic to get his sewing machine fixed. In addition to the Zooms, we've also added a server, a global fixer server. And yeah, this is not a very pretty picture. It doesn't show much except the idea that basically what we can now provide is around the clock, around the world, 24-hour repair via the internet. So because we have this global network of Fixit coaches at this point, there's always somebody on. You know, it's better so it's both asynchronous and synchronous. So we can meet here with voice and video, but it's also a situation where people can just sort of show up, put a question out there, and wait 24 hours or a few days or a week, see if somebody responds to it. So whether you're 16 or 60, you would think you should be able to repair your phone. But the manufacturers are putting impediments in our way of being able to do that. In this particular case, this manufacturer, who shall remain nameless, has created their own special proprietary screw just for the outside case. Once you can get past the screw and go inside, they use standard Phillips head screws on everything inside. But these screws on the outside, these pentalobe screws, are designed, from what I can figure out, just to keep us out. And I had the same experience a few months ago when I was trying to take apart an air purifier, that the two sides were kept together with 6 screws. Out of the 6 screws, 2 of them were security torque screws. Those are the 2 on the upper right. And I also have that little diagram that shows some of the many, many different types of proprietary screw heads or different types of fasteners that people can use, manufacturers, you know, can use to hold something together. So the only reason I can figure out that they did this was just to keep me out. And it's an air cleaner. I mean, it's a fan. There's nothing dangerous or proprietary about that I can tell that they had to use those proprietary screws. So yes, we are seeing this more and more often. It's not just about hardware. That's sometimes just being able to get and fix it mechanically or electronically is no longer sufficient. In this particular case, this person has this phone and she needs it to get phone calls from her doctor. But so much bloatware and malware and pop-ups show up that when the phone starts ringing, that she can't get to it to answer it in time, and so she misses the calls from her doctor. And so this is there's a more detailed story behind this, in that this is a subsidized phone. You know, we basically want to provide universal access to people, so we give them phones. And this particular phone is a low-end phone from China with lots of malware and bloatware on it that comes on the phone. And she doesn't know how to get rid of it. And so digital equity, digital inclusion is becoming a critical part. And then as more and more things become a combination of embedded software and hardware, this issue is coming to the fore more and more. So you think about resilient and self-reliant types of communities, and certainly farmers, you think of farmers being able to repair their own farm equipment, but they can't anymore. So the farm manufacturers at this point have so much embedded software in their devices. They're using the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the law that keeps you from pirating DVDs and music and stuff. They're using that to keep people from being able to repair their own farm equipment. John Deere has actually argued in court that when you buy a John Deere tractor at this point, you're not buying the tractor. What you're buying is a license to operate the tractor. And there's two ironies for this. One is that if you're a Canadian farmer and you buy a John Deere tractor, you're not subject to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, so you can repair your own tractor. And the other thing is that some of the American farmers have just, in frustration, there's some Eastern European company that's reverse engineered the software to run the John Deere tractors, and they're just running that. They're buying that from Eastern Europe and they're running the tractors on that. But imagine you're a farmer, you're trying to harvest, it's going to rain, you're in the middle of your field and a wheel sensor breaks, and you think you just disable the wheel sensor and keep on going. But if you do that and try to start up the tractor again, the diagnostic software runs, it says, uh-oh, this has been tampered with, sorry, you can't run again until our field representative comes out to you and resets the codes. So this is going to become more of an issue going forward. And it's not just for farmers, okay? You know, obviously you don't want stuff breaking down in a war zone, in a military operation theater, but that's exactly what's happening. This op-ed from the New York Times, where a logistics officer talked about a generator that failed during a South Korean training exercise. And they couldn't fix it. They were literally not allowed to fix it in the field. The contract with the generator's manufacturer said it had to be shipped back to the United States for servicing by the manufacturer. So two things with this. One is, well, this now elevates repair to a national security and military readiness issue. And the other thing is, you know that this article was not some rogue officer. This was clearly sanctioned by higher ups, you know, that this would make its way to the New York Times op-ed page. So that's why we have right to repair. And Dan told me that you were interested in that, and I can speak at length to that. Massachusetts is actually a leader in this. A long time ago, 10 years ago you guys had automobile right to repair. You saw more and more that the car manufacturers were trying to keep repair just to the dealer, and using the codes on the computer, the codes on the car were only available to dealer service. And so 10 years ago, you passed that law. And then just this last year, you updated it to recognize that idea that cars are becoming more and more a combination of hardware and embedded software. And once again, these issues were coming to the fore. You came very, very close to passing a much broader right to repair law. It passed through committee, and it just never made it, with the pandemic, it never made it to the floor for a floor vote. So it's starting again, and let's see if we can push it through. But it's being fought tooth and nail, obviously, by the manufacturers. They don't want us to be able to repair our own stuff. There are existing laws. There's the Mass Magnuson Act from 1924, which talks about the idea that manufacturers cannot restrict your right to repair your own stuff. So all of those stickers on things that say, warning will void your warranty if you open it, that's illegal. That's not, well, or it's not true, okay? That you have a right to make an honest and earnest effort to repair your stuff and to have a third party repair it. So the FTC has actually sent warning letters to certain manufacturers. Microsoft was guilty of this with the Xbox 360, putting a big sticker on it saying you can't repair it. If you open it, you void the warranty. And that's just not, your warranty rights are preserved through that situation. Okay, so let's go to the present. So just last week, our president held up a computer chip and talked about needing to manufacture these in the United States again. That, we talked earlier about the brittle global supply chain during the pandemic. It's exposed some of the weaknesses of this world this interconnected, woven world where we've moved everything to offshore manufacturing into the lowest cost provider. So he's talking about this. He's talking about this idea that these highly sophisticated electronics that we use to run everything, they're made in places like the place on the right in Asia. And the thing I'm working on now as an extension or a natural evolution of Fixit Clinic is, okay, so given the pandemic, given the brittleness of the global supply chains, given the fact that we have all of this new digitally informed fabrication and this democratization of machine tooling, where numerically controlled CNC machines that used to be the purview of defense contractors only are now available for thousands of dollars and soon hundreds of dollars. It's possible that lots of highly integrated, highly sophisticated stuff can actually be manufactured locally or quasi-locally. So here's an example of a circuit board manufacturing tool that does them one-off, and it speaks to a future maybe where we have mass customization manufacturing on demand, high value, and it's local, and it creates local skilled labor and semi-skilled labor. So it touches on a lot of things. I mean, I don't know if we want to go as far as a new industrial policy for the United States, but it's exciting to think about the idea that this might be the kind of future that's possible by applying these critical thinking skills that simple repair gives you, throughout the society. And so we're doing this at Fixit Clinic now. We're looking at stuff like this and trying to figure out, can we interrogate this stuff, learn how it works, think about how we transfer this to the future repairers of the world and our future up and coming generations. And we hold lots of Fixit Clinics at colleges and universities to teach the next generation of engineers and designers how to design for durability, manufacturability, serviceability, alongside design for manufacturing. And our next Fixit Clinic on March 13th is from University of Minnesota. I should have added them to this list. So University of Minnesota School of Design, and you're all welcome. Okay, on the Zoom, we can support up to 300 people. If any of you are interested and want to see how the sausage is made, you're all welcome to come and attend that. So there's this sense of repair as being a militant or revolutionary act, but that's really not true. I think most people really just are curious about the world. It's innate in our human nature to be interested and curious about the stuff around us. And there's also this sense of repair. It used to be, or it has at times been considered beautiful. So this is kintsugi. This is the ancient Japanese art of ceramic repair, where the repaired item is more beautiful and more valuable than the original. Could we elevate repair to that level once again? Well, it's really hard if you're dealing with this. I mean, this is our consumer electronics world. And we're going through this product churn. We don't think the items are repairable. Even when they have their utility is sort of questionable. I mean, this is a photograph from my local Nextdoor site where this person was giving this stuff away. And there's $1,000 worth of technology, easily on that bench. And all the person added as the text to this was, this was literally the entire post, this photograph, and didn't bother testing. Don't know what works or not. Please don't ask. They just want to get rid of it. They just want to get it out of their life. And it sort of seems like it's, to me, this is just criminal that we've gotten to we've gotten to a point where our built world is like this. So, here's another example of, at this major chain, there's this idea that they've got us in this mindset where we recycle these car seats. They have an expiration date stamped on them. But there's this recent research by this investigative journalist, a guy named Adam Minter, who went and tried to figure out, so basically there's no scientific basis for the expiration date on a car seat. Absolutely none. So it's just there as a way to get people to do the product churn, to basically, and preying on our safety. We don't want to put our children, our grandchildren in unsafe car seats. So if it has an expiration date stamped on it, and something happens, God forbid, we were responsible if the child gets hurt. But the whole country of Sweden has decided at this point, they put out an edict that basically says, you know what, these car seats are fine, just keep using them. Ignore the expiration date. So this is the future I'm trying to move towards, one where all of us are inquisitive and know, how to fix our own stuff, how to apply critical thinking skills to the built world around us. Because really, you could say that any entity, whether it's an individual or an organization, any entity that moves away from understanding the things it relies on is fundamentally at systemic risk. And we need to address that. So I'm looking for a future that has less of this sort of thing going on and more of this going on. So thank you for your time, and I'll take questions.
The town of Lexington for many years, until the pandemic, had a Fixit Clinic, and it was managed mostly by retired engineers, and people would bring in everything from, lamps to microwave ovens, and those folks would fix things.
The Earl Bull Fixit Shop, I've been there. And there's one in Wellesley as well. So the challenge there, so like I said early on, if we could run these Fixit clinics 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you and I know, most usable, reserviceable stuff would still end up in the landfill. That bench of stuff the person was giving away, probably most of it worked. We have to look at the way we're doing our own consumption patterns and figure out, so that's one side, is looking at our own consumption patterns and trying to figure out, why do we buy these things if they have such limited utility to us? And then the other thing there is how do you deploy these skills out into the civilization? How do you make it so you're not relying on somebody else to fix it for you, but you're saying, okay, everybody should know how to fix things ourselves. So I really, at an ideal Fixit clinic, the role of participant and Fixit coach, as I call them, blurs, and everyone's just rolling up their shirt sleeves to help everybody else out. And the idea is to push this out, especially in these pandemic times, where if a neighbor has a broken toaster, you'll say, oh, I was the Fixit clinic, I helped to fix a toaster, let's see if we can't fix yours. So I'm trying to put myself out of business long term.
Yes, I have a recommendation. I use repairclinic.com. It's excellent, and it's for, I've got it in front of me. So refrigerators, washing machines, dryers, ranges, dishwashers, lawnmowers, snowblowers, small engines, furnaces, air conditioners, microwaves, and string trimmers. And so what you do is I just go on and I diagnose. They have a whole diagnostic, so you can look up the item, and then they'll walk you through different diagnostics, and then you can actually put in your article, the serial number, and find it. And then pretty much it was pretty easy to identify what was wrong with it through the diagnostic. Then you can order the parts, they'll send it to you. And then they have videos on how to repair it. So it worked out great because I got the part, and watching the video, I realized I needed help. I couldn't physically do it with one person. So I invited my cousin over, and together we fixed it. And I made him dinner, and done. It was great at the end. It's a perfect, in great shape. And the interesting part, it's a little bit older dryer, but when I went to replace it, I actually shopped to replace it. The newer ones didn't seem as good and as solid. So I still have it. This is 3 years later, and it was already an older dryer, and it's working just fine.
Cindy, the only downside to them is I've looked at them, their prices for replacement parts are a little high. And so therefore they suck you in a little bit. But if you feel comfortable using it and that worked for you, that's the right answer.
Well, it's cheaper than a new machine.
I have just a quick story, which is somewhat related. Many years ago, I'm talking about the 70s, in Brazil, there were two standards for electricity. One was at 120 volts and the other one was at 240. So they had these two systems the eccentricity in it was that they both used the same sockets. In the physics department there, they had power supplies burning out at least daily somewhere in the department. And they started a little repair shop, which became quite expert at repairing this, dealing with this. And they were so good that other departments learned about it and brought their business to them. And this little repair shop grew. It grew to the point that the people involved got together with actually a couple of people in their optic shop there and started a little independent business, making optical parts and repairing electronics. That flourished into first a small industry and then a large one. And in fact, there were enough spin-offs from this basic problem in sockets that it's a major factor in the city. It's a small city, but there are new industries which are all spin-offs from this one repair defect. So it's a success story, but the root of the success was to deal with an idiotic problem. Who would have two voltages with the same sockets?
We're asking to reinvent capitalism, and we're asking to measure growth in other ways that maybe are not as extractive to the planet as we have at this point. So imagine we could invest in the oxygen produced by Brazilian rainforest as opposed to the mining that goes on in the Brazilian rainforest. But we're not given those choices. But we have to decide as a civilization what our future is going to be. I mean, we're sending this planet to a hell and Hannah basket for our grandchildren right now.